trying to go about life, who is trying to walk to the store or in here in New York, get on the subway, gas up their car, whatever it may be, and they suffer some heinous violence. And it's not heinous violence from somebody who just had a bad day and had led a life of probity, decency, and was law-abiding previously. It is a career criminal, often a lunatic, with a history of either assaulting or even murdering strangers. Most recent example, another one that went completely viral, a woman named Elizabeth Gomez. She was on her way to work at JFK Airport here in New York City, 5:15 in the morning. So she's trying to get there. She's trying to do her job so that people who are trying to get all over the country and all over the world have an airport that's actually functioning. And she was in the subway. There are cameras everywhere, right? And just keep in mind, everyone, they don't care. The criminals don't care that they're going to be videotaped because they're going to be out in a couple of hours anyway. What is it? Why are they scared of that?
Also, Buck, they're often wearing masks still because we've set the presumption that you can wear a mask, meaning it's really hard to even identify who these people are.
I have said this all along. Masking has always been an issue of public safety. Facial recognition, not just by cameras, by human beings, is essential to security. There were actually jurisdictions where they banned, unless you needed it for your job, you're doing carpentry or something, you're not allowed to just walk around wearing a mask because of the obvious security implications, but also the psychological implications of not having to actually show your face. So Gomez was on her way, and she was attacked by Wahid Foster. Now, this is a common thing in New York City. It's happened to me. It's happened to all my family members in the last year alone. Someone walks walks beside you, and starts to converse with you in a way that's meant to be very aggressive. And if you ignore them, which is generally, that's the move, you don't want to engage, then they start to become aggressive based upon, why aren't you, bleeping, talking to me? Why don't you're showing disrespect? And they will actually enrage themselves because you won't engage with them as the lunatic on the street, or in this case, in the subway system. And he attacked her viciously on video. She may lose sight in her right eye. You just see he throws her into one of the MetroCard machines. He's kicking this woman. She's helpless on the ground. A guy runs over to intervene and then runs away when he's faced with this individual. So he didn't really do anything. And what we find out about this Mr. Wahid Foster is, Clay, he is a convicted murderer. He murdered his foster mother, okay? He beat his foster mother to death. Years later, he tried to stab, when he was 20, he tried to stab his sister to death with a screwdriver. This guy is walking around New York City. He was walking around a free man. He is, again, somebody who will be a free man. He was on parole in November 2024. He had been at the Creedmoor Psychiatric Center. I actually used to play sports on these fields right next to Creedmoor, and everybody would look at that and say, it's for the criminally, often people held there are criminally insane. Not everybody, but a lot of them. And you just wonder, at what point are we in Gotham and Arkham Asylum has been emptied out and we're all suffering and we need Batman? I mean, you sit around, you wonder, when are they actually going to wake up and do something about this?
And this is resonant for many of you out there. You may not be in New York City. You may not be getting on the subway. But in your city or your community, wherever you may be, there is a story like this that you have heard of a completely innocent person, oftentimes a woman, who has no threat whatsoever that she is bringing to bear on anyone. And this is what ends up happening. And what's really, I think, submarining even more so Democrats is they're not even really acknowledging what's going on. So I want to play a couple of cuts here for you. Karine Jean-Pierre, KJP, was asked about the Jen Psaki's clip. We said crime's a huge vulnerability. She said it. We just played you that audio. Listen to Karine Jean-Pierre try to say, oh, that wasn't what Jen Psaki said.
Jen Psaki says that crime is a huge vulnerability for Democrats. Why would she say that?
So, again, I can't do electoral politics from here, as you know, but I don't agree with your characterization of what she actually said.
Well, I mean, we just played you. So that's Peter Doocy's characterization. It's 100% correct. And then I want to hit you with this. So Peter Doocy also said, hey, does Joe Biden think America's big cities are safe? That's a pretty easy question. Does the president of the United States think America's big cities are safe? Karine Jean-Pierre, listen.
Does President Biden think America's big cities are safe?
It is not a yes or no question. It is very much a question of what has he done.
The answer, by the way, is that they're less safe than they have been in over 20 years because of the Democrat Party, the Democrat corporate media. And Biden can say, oh, I wasn't defund police. Yeah, but was he calling out the defund police lunatics in his own party? Was he saying that people, and by the way, disproportionately minorities, I mean, you look at who was just attacked by this maniac who may lose permanently sight in her right eye? A Latina woman going to do her job, trying to make money for her family and do it the right way. She gets attacked by the maniac, right? Disproportionately.
At 5:15 in the morning, too, Buck. I mean, she's up early in the morning. I would bet that crazy guy who attacked her is still not gone to bed, right? He's probably been wandering up all night, would be my guess. But if you're not safe in daylight hours or in the early pre-dawn hours when people are going to work, if you can't even get on a subway, I mean, this happened to the Goldman Sachs guy, right, Buck, who was shot on the subway.
Who was also, I believe, Hispanic, by the way.
That's right.
And he was shot just going to his job.
Going to his job.
Clay, we have to deal with, there's a fundamental truth here, a fundamental reality that people should be thinking about as they go and they're going to be casting their votes in the weeks ahead. The Democrat Party decided that the entire criminal justice system was racist and needed to be picked apart as much as possible, needed to be taken down, taken apart in every way they could. Now, they weren't able to do it as fully as they wanted, but they said the mantra of the Democrats was the criminal justice system is racist, and we will undermine it in every way we can right now because we say it is racist. That was a lie. They were wrong, and a lot of people have suffered as a result. And, do people care about the bad decision-making or not? This is what the election really comes down to. Do people want to live in this make-believe world where Democrats actually take law and order seriously, too, or not? I mean, I think COVID you can be a single-issue voter. On this, you could also be a single-issue voter. You should be. Judge Janine does not like violent crime. She gets fired up about it, and she is totally right there in her diagnosis of the problem and how we all need to be dealing with this. Got to vote out the lunatics, friends. You got to put governors and mayors in place who will get rid of the social justice prosecutors who are in place and get rid of the wimpy police commissioners who think it's all about doing, diversity and inclusion training and not keeping our streets safe. That's what needs to happen. It needs to be changed here. Dennis in New York is retired NYPD. He has some thoughts on that assault in the subway that has everybody horrified in this city. What's going on, Dennis?
Hey, how's it going, guys? First off, mega dittos to that angel in heaven, Rush Limbaugh.
Yes, sir.
Been to him for a long time. Miss him. Back in the 90s, when I was on the job, and Police Commissioner Bratton was the PC, we had that concept of just stop them at the gates. Now, I doubt this criminal that assaulted the woman at 5:50 in the morning had paid his fare to get on the subway. More than likely, he jumped the turnstile. If there'd been real enforcement, he would have never gotten on the subway to begin with to assault her.
It's totally people.
That's a great point.
People who break little crimes break big crimes, Clay.
As well said, this guy probably skipped his way into the subway in the first place, doesn't get caught then, and is able to engage in actual violence.
I just want to remind everybody, AOC, who is the most celebrated left-wing member of Congress in the media, used to say that when there were these mass thefts going on, that people were just trying to steal bread to feed themselves.
That's right.
That's the kind of stuff that you deal with libs, folks.
I need to correct something I showed you yesterday. When I showed you this video from a subway station near JFK Airport in New York, I erroneously said the thug was beating that poor defenseless dude laying there. I was wrong. That animal was beating a defenseless woman. That's right. That person laying prone against the subway kiosk is a woman. She almost died, and we just found out she'll likely lose at least one eye. That's what we're being told. And get this, that low-life animal has a rap sheet a mile long. At 14 years old, that guy right there murdered his foster mom. You can't get much lower than murdering your foster parents, folks. Again, where are we, America or some biblically awful place?
There's going to be an extended version of this over on Rumble. I'll leave a link to it in the channel comment with a long transcript, too, that you'll want to read. Or maybe not. If you do, that's great. So what happened here, in a nutshell, AOC has endorsed and turned a blind eye to turnstile jumping. And she doesn't care if people do it. She actually encourages it. And what that's led to is, well, several years ago, New York City, the powers that be decide, you know what, we're just going to decriminalize this. Because 92% of the people arrested for it were non-white, so it's racist. Well, the problem is you got a segment of the population, black men, 6.6% roughly, that are over 40% of the arrests for homicide and over about 44% of all the homicide victims. Is that racist? No. They just tend to be violent in a lot of Democrat-run cities. So that's why they did it. So now what you have, you couple that with the fact that somebody can steal a whole bunch of cars, get arrested a whole bunch of times for it, and they let him go. Then what you've got is the MTA head even admitted 99.99%, his words, of the people who are committing violent crime in the subway are jumping the fare. Wahid Foster, I would almost guarantee, jumped the fare. He didn't pay it. About 1 in 8 people on the subway, almost 1 in 8 people on the subway are jumping the fare, and almost 1 in 3 are jumping the bus fare. They're fare evading. They don't care. That's costing the transit about $500 million a year. And that's even before, they're getting taxpayer subsidies from people outside New York State. So this pile of crap wouldn't even exist if it wasn't funded by people outside New York City. So they're letting a bunch of violent people go. These violent people are then jumping the fare because they know they're going to get away with it, and they're beating the hell out of people on the subway and in the tunnels. NYPD said assaults in the subway are highest they've ever recorded, and considering the ridership has not recovered from the pandemic levels, that means the subway per capita assaults per rider, or per 100,000 riders, it may be the most dangerous subway system they've ever had, or in several decades. So they're also moving to, some of these people, decriminalizing urinating in the street. Go ahead and piss in the street. We don't care. Piss on the sidewalk. We don't care. Get drunk and walk around drinking while you're hammered. Do drugs in public. We don't care. So fare jumping has, decriminalizing that, turning a blind eye to it, has snowballed. And then they are letting some really crazy violent people loose. So it's the perfect storm, and AOC is right in the middle of it, and she's responsible for it because she encourages it. She also said, believe it or not, these flash mobs, these smash and grab mobs, they're trying to feed their child. No, when there's 30 people in a convenience store, and they're going behind the counter, and they're just grabbing armloads of cigarettes and whatever products they got back there and just flinging them through the air, they're not trying to feed their child. They're destroying the place. So they have fostered that mentality, and New York City's chickens have come home to roost. I should also mention the New York City MTA fare evasion data indicates that they are not arresting, prosecuting, or summoning very many people for these fare evasions, which are spiking. So it's happening a lot more, and they're catching less people. So they have effectively made it de facto legal to just jump the fare. They don't care. Hey, I'm a poet and don't know it. One last thing I'm going to mention. Out in California, you can steal $940 worth of stuff from a department store or a convenience store or whatever. And you'll probably, if you do get prosecuted, it's going to be a misdemeanor if you get prosecuted at all, which is why they're having smash and grabs out there. So what AOC and her minions have done, they've facilitated a mob mentality, a city of lawlessness. And it's going to get, as Dalton said in Roadhouse, it's going to get worse before it gets better. But you see, New York City is going down that primrose path, and so the whole, it's only a $2.75 fare. Yeah, why don't you pay it? It's only $2.75. I mean, how many can you go into? When are they going to, let them go into Walmart and just steal $50 of stuff, or any mom and pop convenience store? Just, You allow that, and it's just going to snowball. It's going to go further and further. You're going to have people peeing in the streets. You're going to have drug users everywhere. So New York City is going to become Detroit and Baltimore and Flint, Michigan, and Cleveland, cities that used to be great and are a dump. And so all the productive people are going to leave. And AOC, again, that violence in the subway and this huge spike in violence in New York City can be laid at the feet of people like her. She is responsible for it. It is your fault. Another thing I should mention, I know I keep going. This is it, I promise you. New York City's got a lot of fatherless children. There's a culture of fatherlessness in New York City, and they've got some crummy public schools, and they're just churning out idiots, dysfunctional idiots who have no father, who drop out of school, who end up doing drugs and become career criminals, yada, yada, and a la Seinfeld, yada, yada, yada. So, good job, AOC. You have turned New York. If AOC was a city, she'd be New York City. And any place that the Democrats rule for decades, and they've got a death grip on New York City, you can see it happening. You're seeing, and it's happening in Portland. It's happening in Seattle. It's happening in the Twin Cities. It's happening in Houston. It's happened in Chicago. It's happened in Detroit. It's happened in Baltimore. It's happened in Cleveland. It's happened in Camden. It's happened in Wilmington. It's happened in Petersburg, Virginia. Have a nice day.